extra point change in the NFL. I don't know if this is it's going to have more of an effect with the cold weather teams or you play in a stadium that has wind, but the fact we're moving the extra point back, did the NFL do enough with this extra point change in your opinion?
Probably not. This is a tweak. I saw some numbers the other day where over the last couple of years, which would be more relevant than over, a 20 or 30-year period for 33-yard field goals, something like 94%. So you'll miss 6% of them, maybe a little bit more in cold weather. I think this is the forerunner to a larger change, but instead of doing something drastic, something really needed to be done. The extra
what's the radical? Are we going to move it to the 1 yard line?
Maybe in terms of the 2-point conversion.
Yes.
Maybe that's the next move. I think they wanted to do something. Let's stop the extra point. Let's see how this thing works out. Will teams score by running it back the other way once a year, twice a year? That's whatever that is. But I think they'll see how it works out, and then maybe next year there's no reason they can't make another change next year. Why not? Once you start, it's you can refine it. So right now they've basically tweaked it, and then they can refine it.
If you put it the 1 yard line, people stay. Because there's going to be, I would go for 2 every single touchdown.
Well, again, let's go back to that. Let's go back to the Super Bowl play. You're only going to score about half the time, which is how it is from the 2 yard line.
Yeah.
I think it's 47% over the past couple of years making the 2-point conversion. So I don't think it goes drastically higher from the 1. You'll probably see maybe a few more runs, but most of those, 2-point conversion plays are spread formation, shotgun. We can go either way. The inside handoff, run it in, quarterback rolls out, runs it in, throw a pass. I think they were going to line pretty much the same way. When you're at the 1 yard line, if you come up in a very, very tight formation, what do you think the defense is going to do? They'll be there too.
Yeah.
Just the guys banging each other. And
but
can you get in?
You're going to get guys who are, their job will be specific to the goal line. That you'll have guys who you keep on the roster, I would think, just for that. If you're going to go, like Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
Chip would have personnel just for that, it would seem. That he would go for it every time.
And you think those personnel would be linemen or tight ends or what?
Well, he brought in Tebow.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying now with Tebow. Yeah, but then why wouldn't you have Tebow on your team anyway for every time you were down inside the 3 yard line? You could run. You could make a case.
Well, maybe that's why they got him.
We'll see.
Yeah.
By the way, this is not totally new. This is what the Jets were going to do with him too, right?
Yeah.
At one point, Denver had him, and you didn't know what. All you knew was you had a whole bunch of magic going on there, as opposed to a guy being there for a specific purpose. So it's kind of new, but nobody reinvents the wheel. But still, it'll be very interesting to watch.
All right, Danettes want to ask a question. You guys get one question for Al. All right. So McLovin, fire away.
Mac?
Okay, what's a mistake that most younger or newer broadcasters make?
Well, it's a mistake that comes from not having experience, perhaps. But maybe, if you're a young broadcaster and you're just starting out, there's a nervousness, and you feel as if, hey, if I make a really bad mistake, I can do tremendous damage to my career, especially if I get an opportunity to do a big game. I was 27 years old doing the World Series, and all I could think about was, I can screw up the rest of my life by really messing this thing up. So there's a nervous. I think sometimes you get a little bit ahead of yourself, and you're so excited and you're so prepared that you want to jam everything you know into a game. But my feeling's always been, and I tell this to young guys in the business, let the game come to you. In other words, I've got 18 million stories, and I'm going to tell them all, no matter what happens with the game. Wrong. Here's what's happening in the game. Oh, okay. This is a story people will be interested in, and fold yourself into the game. Let the game come to you. That would be my answer to that. Good question, by the way. A raise right now. I'd say 20%.
Fritzy?
The one game or even the one moment where you wish you would have been the play-by-play voice as opposed to someone else, whether they did a great job with that moment or not, if only I could have had that game or that play.
I would, in recent times, the end of the St. Louis, Texas World Series was pretty good. When Freese hit the home run, that would have been maybe one. It's so crazy because I've been so blessed by being at so many games that I just was very lucky to be at. It's a really great question. I don't know. Babe Ruth, whether he did or not, pointing to the bleachers at Wrigley Field, I would have loved to have known what the hell was going on there. Maybe that would be the game. I know that's an Al Nakaka answer, but I mean, what can I tell you?
Can I ask one more quick one?
Sure.
I was just thinking when we had Vin Scully on, Dan asked a very interesting question, and we got a very interesting answer from Vin as far as how often do you beat yourself up after a game. He would say he would drive home after all these years of doing it. He still felt like he screwed up or didn't do something just right. And how often do you beat yourself up over the way you carried yourself throughout a given game and what I could have said or done better?
Well, there are degrees of that. There's always something that you think about in the car on the way back that you missed. And, I don't know what it is. It's like, well, wait a minute. Let me go back to that play. Oh, that's why that happened. So we're doing this on the fly. You don't have time to get everything in. But there are times when you look at it, I mean, it's almost as if you're writing the story of the game in the car on the way home. And that's when the writers are writing their stories. And you're thinking, hey, let me think this through again. I could have been a little bit better. I could have been a lot better. So I don't think you beat yourself up a lot, but
I would.
Well,
After Sports Center, every show I'd do that.
and
I'd beat myself up.
would you go back and look at the tape?
Yes. Every single show.
See, I have a hard time listening to myself.
Oh,
because
I hated it.
I don't like it either.
I hated it. Seton, you got a question for Al before we let him go?
I'm going to get down to the real important stuff. The best cut of steak is?
The best cut of steak is it's a great New York or a Kansas City steak. It
Not
really
a bone-in ribeye guy?
No, bone-in ribeye is a little too fatty. I agree with you. But the next day, you're up 4 pounds.
Yeah, that's true.
Like a really lean, medium rare plus steak, maybe brushed with some oil and cooked in an oven in a fireplace.
Yeah.
A couple of restaurants have that. Oh my God, that is, and with diced like cubed potatoes. How cool is that?
Love it. Great.
Paulie, you want to ask Al a question?
I sure do. Seton stole my steak question from Mr. Michaels. I was wondering, there's people who are not even born yet who will hear your call of "Do you believe in miracles?" the 80 Olympics, USA, Russia. Do you ever think that the level of immortality you have because of that call? Have you ever thought about it?
So, Paul, I just heard. I don't have a headset on. So, Paul, I heard the "Do you believe in miracles?" Do I ever?
That the level of immortality because of that call.
Well, it's a nice calling card to have. It's obviously something that people remember, people love, even if they weren't born. The story's been passed down. The movie Miracle brought it back to life a lot of years ago for a new generation of people. It's a nice thing to have. I remember walking through airports a couple of years later, and people would say, "Gee, I didn't know you did baseball." Well, by that point, I'd already done 2 World Series on national television. Mm-hmm. So that is the one thing that does stand out and apart from everything else.
Is it too big?
Is it too big? I don't want to say sometimes I get embarrassed by it, but I mean, sometimes they make it so big. Once in a while, some writer will write, "Oh, Michael's dining out on this again." I'm going, "What do you mean dining out? I'm not. I don't bring this thing up. I mean, what am I supposed to do? A father and a son come up, and they only want to do is talk about it. And of course, I'd love to engage them in that. So, yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it's a wonderful thing to have on the resume. It's a wonderful thing to have been a part of. It's a wonderful thing to have seen. Those guys, they wrote the script. I just put a coat on it. That's all. And the players did it. They did it. And fortunately, I had words that resonate years later. When I say those words at that time, I have no idea how they play out. None. So the answer is I don't know, how in terms of perception, but it is something that is attached to me and is a wonderful thing to have attached to you.
Well, I would use your catchphrase, at the end of that game, to describe the possibility of these guys getting raises. Do you believe in miracles?
Right.
And I would say no.
Oh, by the way, one other game I would have loved to have
no.
Don Larsen's perfect game. Again, we're going back.
That's a good one.
1956, but how cool would that have been?
He's Al Michaels. We send him on his way. It's Grandparents' Day.
Grandparents' Day. It is.
Al, thank you for stopping by. Great to see you.
Guys.
And we'll see you in Foxborough there.
Or maybe before. You're coming out here again, aren't you?
I might.
Okay. Will you ever see me it's always Eisen? You go to Eisen's house. You babysit Eisen's kids.
Next time we come out, we're going to dinner.
We are.
Yeah, we
and
are.
I'm buying.
Yes, you are.
Big steak.
Steak,
What are
yes.
you going to have
I'll have steak too.
with vegetables?
Do we get to tag along, or is that just the
No,
two
you
of
get to
guys?
go. I got to take a break. All right. We'll come back. We'll close up shop. This is the Dan Patrick Show.